I looked to my right with some caution because when I stood up amending in support of amendment number 1, I was unaware of a bank of very learned, noble and learned lords on my right-hand side. There were 3 of them on my right-hand side. Now there's only one, the noble and learned lord, who is sitting in his place. And he told me over tea, the reason why he was remaining here in the House was to oppose my next amendment. He opposed my amendment number 1 with some fierceness. And now the noble and lady Lord Hoffman is proposing staying back to oppose my next amendment. My Lord, this amendment goes back 28 years to the passage of the Arbitration Bill of 1996. I then objected to the introduction of the principle of costs following the event, which was in general usage in the English courts when a successful party was seeking costs against an unsuccessful party or parties. It was generally thought then that the event meant the winner won the costs. But Mr. Justice Bingham, who was later to become Lord Justice Bingham and then Lord Bingham, he became Lord Chief Justice and then Senior Law Lord, said that wasn't quite right. And it was in a case called Ray Catherine. And in this case, Mr. Justice Bingham said, you should look at which party was responsible for what costs, and the cost order should accordingly be made. My argument was that this obscure phraseology went against the drafting of the whole bill. Those of you who remember those days, and in those of you who now look at the bill, that there was much praise for Mark Saville, later noble and learned Lord Saville, who was chairman of the DAC committee, who was drafting this bill, and assisted by effectively the secretary of that committee, the young barrister Toby Landor, and the wonderful parliamentary draftsman Geoffrey Sellers. And the joy of the 1996 Act is that you can read it as you go through passage by passage in its clear, logical way and its clear, logical language. And what a contrast that is to so many bills that come before us, which in the detail and the complication of many clauses causes most of us to put cold towels round our head before we have a chance of understanding what is meant. I'm not sure of the phraseology. What was the phraseology then in 1996 of the rules of the Supreme Court, or the County Court rules, in other words, the White Book and the Green Book? But I do know now what are the rules in the new CPR, and particularly CPR Rule 44.2, brackets 2, brackets A, and this is what it reads: the successful party will pay the costs of the unsuccessful party, in the clearest possible language. So why should we inflict upon and continue to inflict upon the international community these ancient words of costs following the event when they're not used at all anywhere else? And why do members of the International Party have to kind of seek out what is the meaning of following the event? My Lords, that I'm not suggesting my drafting is perfect. Indeed, those of you who've been watching, looking at the Marshall list, will note I made a mistake and had to redraft. But it can all be quite simply done without any delay, that my drafting can be put in front, for example, of the Rules Committee of the Supreme Court, and they can be consulted, as can be the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, the London Court of International Arbitration, the ICC, and so forth. So there will be no cause for delay if the drafting of my amendment is thought to be worthy of improvement, and I accept that, so that can the Minister again, and this is the second time I'm asking him, almost imploring him after the response I got to my earlier amendment, would he keep an open mind and not leave this strange phraseology of following the event in section 61(2) of the Arbitration